We're live. Welcome back to another episode of Watches of the Week, new movies and TV shows. My name is Brian. I'm with my fellow next door neighbor and best friend, Stephen Dodd, who's also an expert in cinema himself. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the new or relatively new Netflix release movie by the Russo brothers, Electric State, which was based off of a novel, which I haven't gotten the chance to read, but I've heard many amazing things about. And, following up with kind of the popular movement right now of Hollywood having to work off of pre-existing IP, but still feels like relatively original content. Steven, did you get a chance to watch it? And if you did, what'd you think?
I absolutely did. I finished it yesterday. Um, I would say that. I mean, that's a kind of a loaded question. You got anything specific for me?
So I think again, what I think I can ask you about and something that drew my attention is I felt a conflicting feeling of like this movie doesn't feel bad, but it doesn't feel good. And I was trying to throughout the whole time like put my finger on what was like made it feel so hollow. It felt like it had all the beat points of like a movie, but for some reason with every scene it feels like it just felt hollow. It felt like it lacked they never established the audience caring too much about like what happened even when stakes were really high. I feel like I wasn't sure if there wasn't enough exposition and setup, which usually I'd never say because I don't mind lack of context. But let me ask you, what did you think about like the stars in the show? What did you think about Chris Pratt's performance and Millie Bobby Brown and Stanley Tucci? What did you think about the stars in it? Does Ellen have something else to talk about with that?
Yeah, they really went all out for this. So just like a quick little read here: Brian Cox, Woody Harrelson, Chris Pratt, Millie Bobby Brown, Rob Gronkowski, Stanley Tucci, Giancarlo Esposito, Jason Alexander, Ki Kwan, Anthony Mackie, and Hank Azaria are all in this movie, okay, in one way or another. Um, and to just quickly go back to what you were saying is I felt the same way. I didn't feel like it was terrible, but I certainly didn't feel like it was very good as well. That's why I gave it a 5.5 out of 10. Um, and these stars in this film, I think, did pretty good for as well as they could have, given the circumstances. And I think kind of like the shining light in the movie was Chris Pratt and his relationship with his little robot friend. I thought that worked very well. And Millie Bobby Brown is kind of interesting because there are moments where I feel like she's a very good actress, and then there are other times where I feel like she's average. And in the early days of Stranger Things, obviously she was very good. But stardom can really mess with people. And if potentially you're not fully devoted to the craft because you're already a star, you're already so good, people already tell you're amazing. I haven't seen a uptick in her quality of acting. Matter of fact, I've seen it kind of waver, similar to um, when I saw Fruitvale Station. Um, and oh my gosh, not Michael J. Fox,
Michael B. Jordan. Yeah.
Michael P. Jordan. Yeah, so I've kind of seen they came out really hot with like really good acting, and then through immediate superstardom, it seems like they're flatlining a bit. So I'm a big Millie Bobby Brown fan anyway. Especially because I think Enola Holmes was one of the best movies that Netflix has like ever put out, and honestly should have been I think nominated for Best Picture on Netflix 2 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, and so
Wow.
she's the star of that film, which
Yeah,
is
the Sherlock, the female Sherlock Holmes.
yes,
With Henry Cavill too.
yeah, and Did you know how much money they spent on this movie, Brian?
Yeah, because I did look it up beforehand, but do you want to share it with us?
It was $320 million, $5 million short of the Avengers Infinity War budget.
Wow. And it didn't even theatrically release, I don't believe. I think straight to Netflix. So like how much money does Netflix get off of like people streaming? Like how is this how is that a maintainable business model? Um because I was seeing reports of like 275 million and they're probably not even showing you advertising, which there wasn't too much. I almost like I thought that the stars were like the weakest part about this. I thought that they like, and which made me be like, is this just like a poorly written script where it was a little too on the head? It was a little too like cliche and gimmicky with the lines, where they were bouncing between a tone of it being a comedy and it being a serious drama. And I think that trying to dance and follow the line between both a drama and a comedy made it less effective at both. Where like when those moments when you needed to be dramatic and to care, it felt too lighthearted. And then moments when they're trying to be comedic, you're like, I want you to be a little bit more like serious.
Yeah, and I think to that point, I feel like this about definitely a certain number of movies or a certain percentage of movies where I go, they're caught in between here. You either make it an R-rated film and jack everything up, or you make it PG, because this felt very lost in what it was supposed to be. And I could have seen it actually do very well if they would have changed some things, obviously, and adjusted like the writing of it. But I saw this film being a lot better in a PG structure, because it's a movie about like cartoony robots. Like why, why would you try to lean into, I don't know, the raw nature of war when you got a talking Mr. Peanut in,
Yeah, yeah.
it just a strange thing. But here's the thing. So obviously that's way too much money. Like that is I mean, no one or not many people probably agree with me on this, but I don't think it was any worse or better than any of the Avengers movies. Literally, like same budget. That's how I feel personally. But the CGI was incredible in this film. I thought very good, really realistic looking.
I just like can't there was I think just alone on Chris Evans, I don't think people give enough credit to Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. for how good of actors and how much weight I want, like how much responsibility do we give Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. for making those Avenger movies good? Because I think on their performances alone, I think maybe Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. might be so good of actors that they don't need strong directors to get a really authentic performance. And maybe we just saw with Millie Bobby Brown and I even saw that Kevin Feige from Marvel is now concerned about letting the Russo brothers direct the Doomsday Avengers because of how the Russo brothers have just flopped after the Avengers. And it's just things aren't hitting the same way. And I almost see a similar trajectory as to what you were saying with Millie Bobby Brown with the Russo brothers. I can't tell you their work much before the Avengers, but it has been downhill since. It's almost like the more freedom they get, the worse it's gotten.
Yeah, well, and if you're constantly doing films that don't have good scripts and like exciting stories with in-depth characters that you care about, you end up with like a flat movie.
Well,
And so who knows if that's the root. It almost seems unfair with the Russo brothers, like to pin it on them.
Yeah, yeah, very true. And I think also it's like how good of a performance are you gonna get out of people when they're acting to like ghost and CGI? It's like
Mhm.
maybe this
That's
is the performance you get. Like when they're just in a green screen thing and it's not practical enough. It's like maybe this is why it feels hollow is because it is. Like, it just like just didn't feel like anything it didn't know itself fully. It
here's
just
here's what I will say, with regards to things, something that I thought was good about it, like in addition to the CGI. I respect that they went for it. This is a unique film. It might have not been good, or very good, right? But I thought it was a unique concept, and I like that aspect of it, because you know if we're going back to the Avengers and stuff like that, it's like what you guys are just recycling the same things over and over again. And with this movie, I felt like, all right, at least it was unique. Yes, did they spend too much money? Were the stars a little underwhelming? Yes. Was the script not good? Yes, but like at least it was unique. That was my takeaway.
so I look at it and this is kind of we'll wrap it up here. Maybe we'll give a rating after this, but I wonder, you've seen the movie District 9, right? And you know the animation and the CGI that went into that, right? And how in depth that world was. How much do you think that cost to make District? $30 million. So like are these stars ruining are they ballooning the budget without adding any value? Because with District 9, the world is so saturated and so real, and they're getting all this CGI done for 30 million. Like, what is these? You know,
Or the CGI that they're relying upon is so extensive and so consuming, budget wise, that you know that maybe they need to look in other directions. Because I mean, $320 million for this movie is just crazy.
that's why the industry's tanking. It's just not. That's not. You have to make $1 billion. You have to make $1 billion to make a profit, and like you just can't count on making $1 billion every movie. That's just a flawed rating. So I think I would give this movie a 6. I think I'd give it a 6. I think didn't hate it, didn't love it. Thought it could have. It was close. It felt as close. Has its flowers in certain moments, but I feel like I'm gonna give this 6. How about you?
5.5.
And then we'll leave it off. What do you guys think about the movie? Is there, if you read the book, how's the book compared to the movie? We'd love to hear that, and we'd look into that as well. And then why don't you give us your rating as well, and let us know what you think, and if there's any other movies that you want us to watch here on the Watches of the Week. So we'll see you next time.